Shalom, family. I'm gonna start it here. I keep starting my thing right next to the Wi-Fi's on, and does a little lag real fast. All right, we want to say the Lord's prayer. Shalom, family. Let's say the Lord's prayer, and then we'll have a holy conversation. So nothing. I don't have not nothing like that. So if someone also is, I will put this, and you have a holy conversation. All right, let's pray. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be thy name. May thy kingdom come. May thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us each day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass us. And lead us on the righteous path, and guard us from evil. Amen, family. I guess I can take this time to talk about some of the previous things that we were doing, because I think it's always good to even talk about what you're doing, because even the things that you do, there should be a cause, right? Remember David, when he was actually taken uh, to go to the camp, when he was given the food from his father and said, go to the first time he ever received that oil, when Samuel poured it on him when he was young. And then before he struck Goliath, remember his brother was like, why'd you come here? You know, we know you just wanted to see the battle. That's all you wanted to do. You wanted to cause problems. And David was like, is there not a cause? The reason he came there it was a reason why he came there, and that was a reason why the people gathered together to fight against the Philistines. So sometimes I believe reasons should be also an article just recently how Israel was kicking out some people in their land who they say by blood they don't belong there, because the people were saying by blood they do belong there, but they were saying by blood they say they don't belong there. Well, I think stuff like that requires a fair trial. I think that people shouldn't just look at people and assume a thing as the people have been doing for generations and generations and generations of time. But I think that we should look at the geographic evidence and, of course, the genetic evidence, and look at these things carefully, and not by the reason why I also wanted to talk about this, because for some reason it seems that the people today, when they take genetic studies and look at the answer to the genetic studies and say where they came from, you're taking the end result, right? You're taking where people are now and saying, oh, that must be where they must have been thousands of years ago. They don't take migration into consideration. Information, certain studies, and certain things like that. That's when you're going to get a clear answer to those things. So that's why I was doing that. That's just something that I wanted to commit to that week, and commit to getting information, historical information, linguistic information, genetic information, biblical information, to give some information to some of those things, because I think that it's not right to push someone out of a country based upon their bloodline. Because if we do that, then we got to look at also at the right of return. People who wasn't even Jewish mother. That's how it was in the right of return. It can't. Then that's how it was in the beginning, and they feel some type of way with people in the land. So that's the reason why I felt going on that. I felt we needed to bring forth some information on that. So I was focusing on that. But as always, when it comes down to the deep fact, for the sake of understanding, blood is blood. As we know, Christ came by. If we look at those things carefully, we can find out some interesting things. But if we go off of scripture based on the spirit, it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter where you came from, or who you are, or what you have done, and all those things. The Lord himself, when you're born again, you're born into a new stock. You're born into a new family, into a new place, a new life, right? It's important to understand, even the disciples said that no one has even yet entered into the kingdom. They're saying that when that final trumpet happens, then they'll enter into the kingdom. Messiah say they can't enter into the kingdom unless they're born again, unless they're born of water and spirit. right? They got to receive both water and spirit. You got to show the faith in order for you yourself showing that you would take that step and put yourself in the water. And you got to show that you yourself are going to when that final baptism of fire happens, where you can't turn back anymore. So that's obviously for the sake of understanding. And we know that's the true way. And test the things they call so-called science, we can understand them. We can understand so-called science, so-called history, all those things. So that's why I felt it important to go over those things. Which also, I would still invite someone wanting to talk about any of the things there. We can always talk about those things in more detail to understand different things. And be careful if you're someone that also do studying of these things. Don't let the things that are laid out now fool you. Aren't being brought to the mainstream. That a lot of people still are kind of circling around that this is what it is. There's no other way. But there's a lot of things going on in places that may be kind of hard to. Not that they're not happening, that are hard to find. The higher ups, they know what's going on. So that's why those that can dig really well, it's good if they grab the information to bring that stuff forth. So that's why I wanted to talk about those things the day before. I wanted to talk about those things the day before. But I do want to get back to prophecy. It's important for us to focus mind on the time that we're in. Very serious. We're in a very serious time. When we look at all the things throughout all of history, we're in such a strange time. In fact, I think one of the brethren had gave me a very interesting little video today, and let me see if I can find it. Very interesting video. See if I can find that one real fast. It's actually something with the COVID, right? Let me show you this. We definitely should talk about this. Let me see. Seems like every day is always something going on. Something happening every single day. I'm just going to put it in the description and I'm going to open it. All right. Shalom, family. Okay. It's this thing right here, but I got to see how I can copy it. Okay. I want to show you this.
By Chinese military scientists, where they discuss weaponizing SARS coronaviruses 5 years before the pandemic hit. The book was written by People's Liberation Army scientists and senior Chinese public health officials back in 2015. It describes SARS coronaviruses as heralding, and I quote, a new era of genetic weapons. It says they can be artificially manipulated human disease virus, weaponized and unleashed in a way never seen before. One of the authors of this book, former deputy director of China's Bureau of Epidemic Prevention, Li Feng, and the editor-in-chief of the paper, Zhu Dezhong, was the leader of the SARS epidemic analysis expert group under the Chinese Ministry of Health. He reported to the top leadership of the Chinese Military Commission and the Health Ministry during the 2004 times. He also prepared 3 reports for the General Office of the Communist Party's Central Committee and the General Office of the State Council. He gave 2 big interviews on Chinese state TV and appeared in 6 news articles. He was responsible for 16 national and military command topics. Now, just to be clear, before I go on and bring you new information from this document, while intelligence agencies suspect, and they've been investigating this since early last year, that leak from a Wuhan lab, there's no suggestion it was an intentional release. significance of this paper is that it offers a insight into how senior scientists at one of the PLA's most prominent military universities, where high levels of defense research are conducted, were thinking about biological research. This Chinese language paper is called The Unnatural Origin of SARS and New Species, and it says, following developments in other scientific fields, there have been major advances in the delivery of biological agents. For example, the newfound ability to freeze microorganisms has made it possible to store biological agents and aerosolize them during attacks. In this document, aerosolize them
because this is crazy. That was a time where the virus came out and everybody was saying that it was basically weaponized and people made it, and it was all types of things going on, right? The conspiracies that it came from China, lab in China, and then it's almost like it's like there's cliches in the real world that many people start to think the conspiracies, it's all conspiracy because it's just too cliche. It's just too cliche. How could a mass virus be released and someone actually the cause of it? Cliche now. That's how the world that things are becoming almost like a comical Batman Robin type thing, right? A Batman Joker type thing. It's crazy such how the world itself is so wicked that the way that when you understand that when someone's so wicked, they do things that are cliche. They're just gonna do things that are cliche because wickedness is not nothing since the beginning of creation, right? We've been seeing that these have been going on and going on, and getting a hunch that is not right usually is right. Usually is right, and what this evidence is single-handedly showing you that they knew that people were weaponizing this thing, and they even had a strategy on how to prepare themselves when people weaponize the thing. So now let's also understand they're trying to say this was an accident, right? It was released, it got out somewhere, it started the same paper that came from China. It started to spread out there. What if they did accidentally release it? What if they really intend to make it more deadly and then wanted to release it? But now that it's released, there's nothing really they can really do about it. And now more evidence is coming out that's actually against when it comes to these things. I heard something really interesting where someone said it was like the red dragon and things like that. Really interesting statement, because if you notice, there's a lot of alliances, right? You got Ishmael with uniting, and you got all types of different groups uniting. And what's interesting, I don't know if you ever seen this. I'm gonna show you on a map real fast. Because if you don't ever see it, now remember, America is having high intentions of war against China and Russia. Is looking very aggressive right now. If you're paying attention to some of the things, you already got, if you look in where Israel is, you already got Iran, a lot of Iranians, and then you have, here's going to be Russia, right? Zoom up a little bit. So you got China over here, right? And then you got Russia. And then notice Russia is not that far from America when you look at it like this, right? You can have a big sea. If it was a battle, you know where the battle would be? The battle would be at sea if there was a battle. So the battle would be at sea. If you was to be if you had to make a decision on where you wanted to be during such things, if they understand the chance, look it up. Russia preparing to battle, and they got all their stations set up here. They got them all set up here, right? Very important to understand. When you start seeing people prep like that, you don't wait till the battle takes off, right? You wait for the signs when you start seeing people start to build up, because they're not going to just tell you. They're going to keep denying things. If you notice, there's been attacks over here where they're attacking each other, and they're like, oh, they deny that was their intention. That wasn't our rocket. So you got people, whose rocket is it? right? You got all that type going on. But this is when you want to pay attention when major countries like these two start to build up. That's when you want to start to pay attention. The war, if they do go to war, the first battle is going to begin at sea. And if you know, Russia developed a new type of weapon, a type of weapon that's like a nuke, but it works in the water and it basically makes a tidal wave. So there's a lot of stuff that's biological warfare is just a small thing to consider for the sake of understanding. But I want you to see the rest of this because it's crazy what they found in this document. It's really crazy what they actually found in this thing. So
during attacks. In this document, unbelievably, there's a whole section on the best conditions under which to release a biological attack. It says this: dawn, dusk, night, or cloud, because intense sunlight can damage the pathogens. It says biological agents should be released during dry weather. Rain or snow can cause the aerosol particles to precipitate. And it says a stable wind direction is desirable so it can float into the target area. The book notes as well how a sudden surge of patients requiring hospitalization during a bioweapon attack, and this is a quote, could cause the enemy's medical system to collapse. It then goes on to talk about, here's more from it. Large-scale biological weapon attacks can cause many indirect consequences in addition to human casualties. Major impacts include enormous burden on healthcare system. Well, we've seen that. Biological weapon attacks have a much prolonged effect than conventional attacks like explosion. It may also carry highly contagious diseases that can be transmitted through various means.
Shalom, brother Leo. Shalom. So this is really crazy because if you see this, so this is 2021, and seeing all these things that this paper is writing about come to pass. I don't know if this was their intent, this was the mission complete, or if they did slip up, right? But you do see that there's a paper that's actually letting us know that they were planning not just for this event to happen, but how to do it, how to do the event. So it's pretty crazy to see that.
The document ecological terror bioweapons can cause. It's chilling. It says not only cause widespread morbidity and mass casualties, but also include formidable psychological pressure that could affect combat effectiveness. Just like other disasters, people will live under fear of attack, causing brief or last psychological impairment among some. In other words, it goes on, attacks using biological weapons can cause acute and chronic, such as acute stress reactions. Now, among the most bizarre claim in this document is the theory by the authors, and there were 18 authors, most of them linked to this high-risk military university. They claim, and it's a conspiracy theory, that the first SARS from 2003 was a man-made bioweapon deliberately unleashed on China by terrorists. Of course, scientific consensus holds that SARS was of geographic barrier from palms to humans, likely through the sale of wild animals in wet markets. So this is a very odd conspiracy theory for a senior Chinese military scientist to be pushing about the SARS pandemic of 2003. And it's very similar to China now claiming that the COVID-19 pandemic was brought into Wuhan in frozen food or by the American military. These are conspiracy theories that the Washington irresponsibly gave credit to in its recent White House investigation. This isn't just a random conspiracy theory from a senior military scientist. This shows what senior scientists are teaching the next generation of military coming through, as well as reporting to the Chinese Ministry for Health. Zhu Denzhou also held the position of professor and doctoral supervisor at the Air Force Medical University's Military Epidemiology. He trained more than 100 PhD and other students, putting this idea into young scientists' minds that SARS from 2003 bioweapon inflicted on them by foreign terrorists. One of his students actually went on to write a thesis about this very topic of SARS being of unnatural origin. And that thesis was uncovered, I found out today, by a group of internet researchers, investigators who go by the name of Drastic. Chinese students the best conditions under which to release a bioweapon. This is very dangerous stuff. This editor-in-chief of this paper was successively rated as an outstanding teacher in the army. He was given the gold medal of the Military Academy Education Award. He was recognized as an advanced individual in the national SARS prevention and control work, ranked as an outstanding party member of the General Staff. And he still enjoys special. New Zealand data scientist Gilles Demanouf, he's one of the people at Drastic who've been researching this individual. He told me today, you would think that Gilles may be some fringe scientist based on his conspiracy about SARS-1. Well, he is not. Instead, he is a renowned epidemiology professor at the 4th Military Medical University. He's considered an outstanding party member within the PLA, top levels, and enjoys just like an academician. His training was really good for sure. This is what Gilles says. In '91, he went to do some doc study in the US at the very top Baylor College and in the US, CDC.
So this is really interesting. So basically, what China tried to pull, because if you don't remember, when COVID came out, they was trying to say America actually put it on them and basically made a weapon from them. Now that's ridiculous. Because even just to see that, even if we see, like, for example, if we look at what's actually happening with the COVID, we know that it actually began in China and it spread outwards, and like no one was ready. If someone has a weapon, a lot of people there would have been certain groups that would have already been pre-prepared, but no one was prepared. No one was prepared for it. But also, what's interesting is that trying to say, if you know, COVID is not new. The COVID strain, the new one is new, but it's actually from a fine. For example, SARS. It was just talking about. It was saying that SARS was supposedly weaponized and used as a weapon on them, which is highly unlikely because they talk about how it's something that was used that was basically natural, that basically went from animals to humans, and it was a respiratory virus. Same thing with MARS, which was a little more deadly than the COVID. COVID's like 2-3%, the COVID-19, and then MARS is the really deadly one. So imagine if they weaponized that. That would have been really bad. But SARS would be that one of older one where they actually know that was more of a natural cause. So they're basically saying it's weird how they tried to use SARS and say that someone weaponized SARS on them. Why would they say that someone weaponized the weapon? I mean, weaponized the virus. So it's basically they're blaming that someone else put the virus on them. Someone else did that, and someone else did that. Now there's evidence saying that they're actually making the virus as a weapon. So it's really interesting, just stuff like that. That's one of those cliche things where someone's so guilty they start to just tell on themselves. So that's one of those things that you're seeing here.
These days, he's busy teaching his very special theories to doctoral and postdoc students, at least 53 and up to 100 so far, who form the latest generation of PLA scenario. That this is what they're being taught at university, how to unleash a bioweapon attack, as recently as 2015. This 263-page paper was published by the Chinese Military Medical Science Press. That's a Chinese government-owned publishing house, managed logistics department of the PLA. I've confirmed, while investigating this story, the senior State Department sources obtained this paper and analyzed the origins of the coronavirus back in May 2020. Former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and his chief China advisor Miles Yu then made a passing reference to it in that brilliant Wall Street Journal op-ed that they wrote back in February. They said a 2015 PLAC treated the 2003 SARS coronavirus outbreak as a contemporary genetic weapon launched by foreign forces. I tracked the paper after this. It circulated among Chinese dissident communities. The desk of Luke de Pulford, coordinator at the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, the global group set up last year to raise awareness about China's human rights.
I wanted to quickly read this right here because I think this is a little interesting. Sky News basically let know the host this information, everything, talking about all this, basically talking about the book. They're basically letting people know that SARS was weaponized. So maybe that's one of those things that we should prepare for. Maybe if that was weaponized, maybe this was weaponized. So that's kind of like making an excuse for the book that they're writing for how to prepare for a bioweapon, how to prepare that bioweapon. So that's really, really interesting to see that, as technology gets more and more advanced, remember when a nuke came out, not many people, in fact, barely anyone knew about the nuke. When it hit against them, they sure knew what it was like to be hit with a nuke. So you got to be also looking at who are these people actually against, right? Who are their enemies? Because if you find out who their enemies are, you might see what they're willing to do, right? What they're actually willing to do with some of these things. So just looking at some of these things, I thought it was interesting to see that this is just some more evidence that people were talking about, that a lot of people were, it's conspiracies. There might be things that aren't actually conspiracies. I seen an interesting video where they did a whole, I think, a countdown, like top 10 of things that people said but turn out to be true. I know when it's things that's going on like that.
Abuses. He said to me that if this document is representative of the scientific thinking of those who advise the top leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, then there are very serious questions. The revelation about this document and much, much more on China's bioweapons research program features in a book I've written. It's called What Really Happened in Wuhan. It will be published by HarperCollins in September this year. It's available for pre-order from Booktopia now. If you want to buy it, which I suggest you do, of course, the link is at the top of my Twitter page. And if you're not on Twitter, which would be a wise decision, then just Google What Really Happened in Wuhan and Booktopia.
So a lot of stuff is actually going on behind the scenes. We'll talk about some of those things as we're the watchmen of these last days. It's important for us to watch and get as much information as we can, right? Keep browsing, keep searching, keep paying attention, watch the skies, watch the signs, and then you know what's going to happen sooner or later. Every last thing written in that book, every last thing in that book is going to come to pass. It's important to understand that we have to be ready. If we're not ready, then we had a choice to choose now to pay attention. If we don't, what's that? Remember that scripture, what that scripture said? Some of them are going to be, slacking, not paying attention, slumbering, right? And then he's going to come to them like a thief in the night. They're not going to know. They're going to be over there beating other people, right? That's also in words, right? Some people forget that you got to have charity even in words, not just beating them as in physically, but in your words, right? You got to be building your brothers and sisters up, not breaking them down, right? Remember how he said, to the forward, he will be forward. To the meek, he will be meek. So always remember that. It's very important as we wait in these times, never to forget these little things. So that's just something I wanted to quickly talk about for the sake of understanding. I'm just, just growing, getting some information, beloved brothers and sisters, and praying for you guys and hoping everything goes well as these brothers that's growing, doing a lot out here, right? You got Christ for Ministries and others that's bringing out this information. I think it's important as when we get the chance, if we get some information, even just want to give the gospel, to continue spreading these things, because time is at hand, more so than we know, more so than the world knows. So there's a lot of crazy things going on in the background. Just be careful out there. Be careful at the time. You never know what can happen. So with that, nothing much today, just that. So with that,